Welcome to the Talking with the School of Transportation podcast, presented by Centennial College. With your hosts, Ian Campbell and Harna Gill, let's get into it now.
Welcome to the Talking with SOT podcast.
Really?
What's
Is
up?
that what it's going to be?
Is that a problem? It's
I don't
season
know.
3.
So it's season 3 now, and we haven't really discussed this with anybody else, but a couple students came up to me and they're like, your name sucks. And I was like, what?
Ian Campbell. It's a great name.
Hey, my father gave me that. No, the Talking with SOT podcast, they said it's too long and not catchy enough. So they want us to rename the podcast. What do you think about that, Harnick?
Well, we could put it up to public vote.
Oh, you think?
Well, there was a.
I think we get the ultimate vote, though.
I think we get the ultimate vote.
We need.
We
that.
don't want to end up being Bodie McBoatface.
What is that?
So in the UK, they allowed people to vote for the name of a brand new sub, and the public, by en masse, voted for Bodie McBoatface.
So
they have
our
this,
podcast will not be Potty Miss Podcasts, but
the potty.
yeah.
I don't know about that. The potty podcast.
Yeah, no, not happening.
Yeah.
I will say Philip from our level 3 group right now threw Fuel for Thought, and I was like, that's not too bad, but let's see what everybody else has got.
Okay.
Don't use ChatGPT. Use your brains. Be creative.
Yeah.
Let's see what's going on.
So we'll put it to you, the listener. Either do your standard yell at us down the hall saying, sir,
Yep.
or send us an email, which I already know is never going to happen.
Yeah, that's true. I haven't got any emails about the podcast
Not a
yet.
single email.
And we've been doing this for 2 years plus, and yeah, no emails. So maybe somebody can email me just about the podcast to make me happy.
You heard him. He
Yeah.
wants emails, folks.
Oh boy,
Send them.
maybe.
Here comes the fishing.
Oh yeah, the phishing schemes. Anyways, we have a fun one today. We have a new person on the podcast, so we're gonna have to remember those questions for the end.
Oh,
But we have Arturo Campos here. Welcome, Arturo.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
so who are you? Is my first question.
Who am I? I was a student here once, back in 2007. I did the FCA program, graduated in 2009. Been in the trade since, and I got an opportunity to come teach at the college September 2023. So I've been here since and working part-time at the shop.
Nice. And how do you like it?
A different world. Definitely
Okay,
different
didn't
world.
say anything positive there. Just went different world.
Different world.
It's different world. We all know what shop life is like.
Mhm.
And then when you come to a college, it's completely different. So just to get myself mentally prepared, getting ready to teach was the biggest obstacle. Not to say that I've, have a full
Grasp on it.
grasp.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Mhm.
Grasp on it. But I've been doing well so far. And luckily with the help of you guys particularly and other faculty members, it's been a pleasant time here so far.
Yeah, it's fun. It's the best job in the world if you like people.
Yeah.
If you don't like people, it's terrible.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
I'm glad.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of people, but I still like the job.
Yeah.
I don't know if all my students count as people.
Wow.
Well, at least according to D'Amico.
Oh man.
The students know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, especially Axel.
Yeah. Hey, Axel, you got that shout out you kept asking for.
That's true. And what have you been teaching lately?
Lately, I've been doing a lot of SSB.
Okay.
So level 1 stuff, level 2 stuff. But I've done other courses,
Sure.
tri-trains, CFQ,
Yeah.
apply mechanical courses. So whatever's given to me.
What's your favorite thing about a vehicle, or that you had to teach about a vehicle?
Ooh. I mean, coming with the background of in transmission tech, manual transmission, I always find it fun.
Okay.
When you start getting into automatics, you kind of lose some of the students with some of the terminology.
Not if you're a good teacher.
Yeah, that's true.
I'm kidding. I teach the automatics. That's why I'm saying that.
But manual, it's just every young student wants to drive a manual car, and they just they understand that it needs to go into first gear, second gear, third gear, but they don't understand the actual movements of what components actually engage it all, and how gears are slowed down for you to select a specific gear that you're choosing. So But when we talk about it in class and then we get into the lab, and the lab is where it brings everything out.
Totally.
And it shows them how exactly it works.
It's not just a case with magic inside. It actually brings the gears into focus and you can see through it. So it's
Absolutely.
kinda cool.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But you're teaching SSB level 1, and Harnik, you're the resident SSB block teacher, I believe, right?
I am. I teach SSB block level 1
So
and 3.
let's start with that first S, which is steering.
Steering.
Steering components, right? So
Yeah.
level 1, you just kind of
We look at-
identify and see what's happening with it, and then level 2, you kind of break it down a bit more. So let's stick to level 1.
Level 1 is focused on the linkage types and individual components, and then level 2, how do we get assisted steering? And we talk a little bit more about the components involved with that.
Mhm.
So you've taught the SSB level 1 linkage types. I usually start off by sort of just listing the linkage types to the students.
Yeah.
So when we look at our linkages, we got our parallelogram type linkage, which sometimes just that word alone confuses the crap out of students. I
Yeah.
put on a quiz years ago, rhombus linkage, and the sheer number of students never used the term in the class ever who picked rhombus linkage.
Yeah.
So
You always
we gotta-
catch that one or two students that will.
Oh no, it was more than that. So parallelogram type linkage. And then the most common today by far, rack and pinion.
Yeah.
And then we are common to encounter drag link type linkages.
Yep.
Mhm.
And is there anything else?
Yeah, there's one more.
Haltenberger.
Haltenberger or Ford's twin I-beam type linkage.
Yeah.
And it's in the name there. It's primarily used by Ford. Most of the other manufacturers are not using that type of linkage, so it's kind of niche.
Yeah. So what would let's go back in history a little bit. What would be the first historical steering linkage that you might see? Or more of the older style?
The
let's put it
more
that way.
classic, sure.
Yeah.
The parallelogram type linkage was on an independent front suspension, the type of linkage you're
Okay.
going to see. And that's kind of key to remember there. A parallelogram type linkage will work with an independent front suspension, not really solid axles.
Mhm.
So it is one of the more complicated ones just because there's more components. So I like to start with parallelogram type linkages.
Yeah, I agree. That's because there's more to talk about it because of all the, the center link and the Eiler arm. And then you start breaking it down a little bit when you start looking at how many possibilities are there for components to wear on it. So if you start thinking about it, well, outer tie rods, that's 2 on each side. Inner tie rods, the Eiler arm, the Pittman arm side. So you do have multiple areas that can actually fail on those.
Yeah, and if you ever heard the term grease job and oil change on those steering systems, that grease job was really imperative, to be honest.
Mhm.
Yeah,
So
because of all the joints and the movement.
absolutely. And the failure rates of the components were much higher. It was common to replace a Pittman arm every 40,000 kilometers. The components just didn't last long, particularly if they hadn't been greased, right?
Yep.
So on our modern cars, we sort of move away from a linkage like that because there's more wear items.
Let's kind of break down the parallelogram.
I want to start with one thing, and that's defining what is the linkage.
Okay.
Just kind of simply. The linkage is the components that connect there's a little bit of a difference, the textbook definition and then how we look at it as mechanics. The textbook definition is the components that connect the steering wheel to the road wheels, which then would include your column, intermediate steering shaft, and in some cases, the gearbox as well.
Mhm.
Whereas we kind of look at it is the components in between the gear and the road wheels.
Well,
So we don't tend to
or the hub.
include,
basically.
Sure.
Yeah.
and we tend to not include the box,
Mhm.
intermediate steering shaft, and column, but they are also all at play as well.
Yeah, I agree. Sometimes we just, when we talk about it, we start from the steering wheel, then it goes through the column, intermediate shaft, gearbox, and then it goes to the actual steering linkages. But I feel like sometimes the students focus on that being just the input side of it. But the output side,
I really like that.
Yeah, I like that
Input
too.
and output.
Yeah, it's cool.
So we focus a little bit more on the actual steering component. Like I do talk about all the other components in between, what actually makes the steering linkages move. But I know we talk more about it in level 2. So I just, brush up a little bit on it so they have an idea of what components are inside the steering gearbox. But I let them know when you come back for level 2, we are taking these apart, racking pinions as well. So,
yeah. That input and output is brilliant, to be honest. And you think of that with electrical or hydraulics or anything. If you,
that's how I know you're a transmission teacher. You're like input, output.
Well,
amazing.
It was good, and you can just have that break point, and then the output is the actuator part of it. And I know, being a transmission teacher lately, you have to come up with like ways that people can think, and if you can take that input output, it'll really help. So
sometimes, I mean, we're so used to using certain terminologies that, you got to find creative ways to kind of get everybody to understand what you're trying to explain.
Yeah.
So if we look at a parallelogram type linkage, so we'll start at the output of the gearbox.
Which is what component?
I mean, I would say pitman arm at that point.
So how is it mounted?
Generally, the pitman arm will be splined onto the gearbox itself, and then you'll have maybe a 42 millimeter nut that actually holds it in place, but you got to make sure you torque that down. And then following that, then it's just going to be another linkage from the over center link. And now that's over center link has to be as straight as possible, parallel with the lower control arms when there's weight on it. But because we don't have anything holding the opposite side of that bar, that's where we now need an idler arm to support the opposite side of that linkage. And then you have your inner and outer tie rods now that are connected to that center link. And then as we move the wheels left and right, it moves that pitman arm.
So fast. So fast.
No, this is great.
I'm gonna break it down a little bit.
Yeah, but
okay.
So you started with your pitman arm, and then you went to your idler arm with the center link in the middle, and you kind of make like a joint there, right? That's the starting point.
That's the starting point, yeah.
And it's braced on both sides, right?
Yes.
Yeah, with that idler arm and pitman arm.
So in between the sector shaft and the center link, that's where you have an important part of the linkage, and that's a ball stud or a ball socket. Same as what you'd find on a ball joint or a tie rod. That's pretty critical because it's going to allow for flexing and movement of the joint. When you're driving your vehicle, as we are well aware, for anyone who's driving on our Scarborough roads into campus, there's no perfect roads. So as you're going over bumps and dips in the road, the steering linkage has to be able to shift and wiggle around a little bit without moving your road wheels. The ball sockets are going to allow for that to happen. So your pitman arm is splined to the sector shaft on one side. That's a physical connection. And then there's a ball stud between the sector shaft and the center link, and that's going to allow for some flexing of the joint. And your idler arm is affixed to the frame on one side, and then when it's affixed to the center link, again, there's another ball socket that allows for that flexing of the linkage.
Yep.
One of the things that it's not too common, but some manufacturers do, I have seen it when servicing vehicles in the private shop, is there are pitman arms that are just a chunk of steel and there's no ball socket in it. Have you guys seen that before?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So if the ball socket isn't in the pitman arm, where is it? Because I have to have some kind of ball socket to allow for some flexing of the joint. So if it's not in the pitman arm, where would it be?
It had to be on the center link.
Yeah. So there you have a center link that's actually serviceable and wears. Normally you look at a center link and it's just a chunk of metal. Like, it's a bar. It's not too complicated. But
with a hole in the middle?
Yeah, with a hole in the middle. Exactly, right? So if the pitman arm's just a chunk of metal, then the ball socket is in the center link. And the center link is the serviceable component. A little bit oddball, but some manufacturers did use that.
And for that pitman arm and center link, you can use a lot of heat on that, right?
Just torch that bad boy right on up.
There goes the output seal on that
steering box.
The steering box.
Yeah. So,
or just an air hammer on there, right?
Well, it's kind of like, I explain it like this. There's two gears inside, or two shafts with gears inside the box. Now imagine someone took an air hammer to your teeth. What would happen? They'd shatter, right? Or a big hammer to it. So you do have to be pretty careful. What tool would you use to remove the pitman arm?
There is a puller tool, and generally that tool can be used for maybe your ball joints as well. So it's just a claw that goes right around the actual pitman arm, and then it just pushes against the sector shaft part of it. And as you either use a socket and do it by hand, so you don't really cause too much vibration, but we know some techs will just get their impact gun and just gun it, just trying to get it off. But generally, that tool does work.
So that tool is literally called a pitman arm puller. And I always say it's the big brother of the wiper arm puller. So if you know what a wiper arm puller is, you know what a pitman arm puller is.
Yep.
Now, how many times has your wiper arm puller failed to get the wiper arm off?
Also known as a two-jaw puller.
Two-jaw puller, yeah.
That's all it is.
But wasn't that tool actually made for the battery terminals?
Some of them are, but you can get ones for the wiper arms specifically.
Okay.
It's a jawed puller. And now many times I'd find that it's not going to do the job. You keep tightening it, you're eventually going to damage the shaft. Same thing with the sector shaft. You get something high mileage that's been on there forever, that puller's not pulling it off.
Yeah. So you just heat it up, right?
Well,
I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
You kind of got two options. You could remove the box and take it to the press, which that's a lot of work and probably not the best. Or what you actually do is you're going to get your die cutter, cut a slot into the pitman arm. This is if you're replacing the pitman arm. Okay, you're gonna cut. I gotta say, big disclaimer.
When you cut a slot in the pitman,
right? You're cutting a slot into the pitman arm. You don't go right down to the metal, but you get it nice and thin. You put a chisel in there. You just give it a little bit of a whack. The metal's going to spread, and you just pull that.
And then you weld it back
off.
Together, and then you put it back on.
Yeah, here you go, sir. So at that point, of course, it's garbage.
So sloppy.
It's funny that you mentioned that because I had to do that a couple months ago on a vehicle where the pitman arm wasn't coming off. It doesn't matter what I did, and I just remember, when I'm taking off, if I'm doing a differential rebuild, and sometimes the pressed in tapered bearing on the pinion side, you use the tool to properly pull it off, and then
grab it.
Everything, the cage comes off with it. So now what? What do you do? So I always cut it. I cut a slit in it just enough that I get close to the center of it, and then chisel, little tap, breaks free.
Piece of cake, right?
It works well.
Yep.
Awesome. So that's the pitman arm. Does the idler arm need service ever?
Idler arms are also components with ball sockets in it, so they can fail. Right?
Absolutely.
What would be the check for that then?
So there's a couple ways to check it. You obviously, basic disclaimer, check what your manufacturer says.
For sure.
But generally, the way you're going to check an idler arm is you're going to perform a dry park test.
Dry park test. The way I look at it, if you start looking at all the ball studs or ball and sockets that a parallelogram has, how do we check all of them at once? So performing a dry park test has to be on level ground. Nobody, if it's a rainy day, nobody's going to crawl underneath a vehicle outside. So you can't lift it up on a hoist because then all the tension is off the components. So generally you will end up using your alignment machine or the ramp hoist, whatever you want to call it, and then have your apprentice or another tech that's jumping into the vehicle. And the way I talk about it in class, you put your hands at 11 and 1 o'clock, and all we're trying to do is shimmy the car left and right just to get the steering linkages to move. That way, while the technician is underneath inspecting, the idler arm or inner and outer tie rods, at least we're able to see if there's any play in these components.
Now, some of the components, like an idler arm, actually need to be preloaded with a certain amount of force when checking it.
Correct.
Right. So some of your manufacturers do stipulate the amount of force. And if you have a little pull scale, you can apply the exact amount of force that the manufacturer stipulates on that component to see if there's an excess amount of free play. So without any force on it, it may look like the component is loose. Once you apply the correct amount of force, then you can see whether it is actually worn out or not. The dry park test, very good test to go over your suspension and steering components. Easiest to do on a pickup truck, let's face it, because you can just crawl right under.
Yep.
That being said, valid test for any vehicle out there.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Any type of steering system, anything. Yeah,
Absolutely.
Works well.
And I guess one final thing I'll say about the dry park test is the default position is from turning from 11 to 1 o'clock back and forth. You have to modify the test to your concern. So if the customer concern is there's a clunk noise, but the clunk only happens at the end of steering wheel travel all the way to the right, turn your steering wheel all the way to the right, move back and forth. At first, you might want to move back and forth smoothly, like not too fast. And then you may want to go back and forth rapidly. So you have to change up the test to fit the situation, because not every car is going to fail in the exact same manner, and the faults may not be present in the way you're doing a basic test. So you do have to modify the test a little bit until you can verify the customer concern, because that's what we're trying to do.
Yeah, every customer's, like you said, every customer is going to come in with a different description of what noise they hear, whether the steering wheel was in the lock position or halfway. And sometimes we're there trying to duplicate this concern. And, sometimes as a flat rate technicians, we're rushing a little bit, trying to get the car done, but taking that time to, try different scenarios, maybe get a little bit more information. But you're right, you have to take your time with it and try different scenarios like you're mentioning.
Mm-hmm. And then you leave the apprentice up in the car and go for lunch.
Yeah,
that's his problem now.
Yeah. All right, so we've talked about the pitman arm, the idler arm, the center shaft, or the center link. What's beyond that then?
Okay, so we have our inner tie rods.
And then you have an adjuster sleeve.
Okay.
And then you have your outer tie rod.
Now, again, the inner tie rods to connect to the center link, ball socket.
Yep.
Okay, so every component
And the outer tie rods
to the knuckle.
hub,
to the knuckle assembly.
So you have, as Arturo mentioned earlier, so many more frictional contact points.
Mm-hmm.
So, which means the more points I have, the more points of failure I have.
Yep.
One of the benefits of the parallelogram type linkage is you can adjust individual toe. So you can adjust a right side and left side toe individually of each other, like what we expect on most of our modern cars. But the main downside here is all those additional components I have. Once upon a time, it wasn't too uncommon to replace your idler arm and pitman arm every 50K, sometimes even earlier than that.
Mm-hmm.
And for technicians, hey, that was great news. It's keeping us busy. There was work to do, right? But in terms of cost of vehicle ownership, that was higher than what we have on our modern linkages.
Okay, modern linkages. What would that look like then, Arturo?
So more modern, we are now talking about what is more mass produced based on, it's not as complicated as a parallelogram, less components, cost efficiency is the most thing that manufacturers look at, and that'll be the rack and pinion.
And I like to say the benefit of the rack and pinion is it's modular. Okay. And what that means is all the components are sort of integrated together. So rather than having a separate pitman arm, idler arm, inner outer tie rod, and a center link, you kind of meshed these components into one assembly.
Including power steering when you get to level 2.
Absolutely.
That rack and pinion works so easy.
Exactly. You have assist directly at like the gear. You're right. That's what I want to say. The gear is also incorporated into the assembly as well. That's your rack and your pinion. Those are your gears. So the benefit of the rack and pinion is its modular design. It's compact. It doesn't take a lot of space, and it works really good with our independent front suspensions.
Absolutely.
What checks do you do on a rack and pinion then? Would you do the same dry park test?
You can absolutely do the same dry park test.
Yeah, absolutely. The dry park test is for any steering system that you have. We're checking for any play, especially inner and outer tie rods that are generally the only things that we can really replace on a rack and pinion.
Okay.
Anything further from that, now you're probably, diagnosing there might be some play between the pinion and the gear itself, which is not serviceable at that point.
And that can also be found.
Pinion and gear. Can you explain that pinion and gear a little bit more in depth?
Again, you have two gears. You have your pinion gear, and that's your input, and then you have your rack. It's a rod that has teeth on it. Okay, it's that simple. It's just a rod that has teeth on it that meshes with the pinion. Now, there's bushings that keep the rod or the rack in place. Internally, those bushings can wear, and then you can have some movement of the rack assembly. Okay, and that's going to allow for a little bit of chatter between the teeth. There's also a certain amount of backlash between the pinion and the rack. Mm-hmm. And that's as a drivetrains guy, I can see he's got a big smile on his face because I use the word he likes. Backlash.
Yeah.
So what's backlash, Ian?
The space between, a Dave Matthews song. Sorry. No, it's the space between the gear and the tooth before it starts to move. And we need that for a bit of expansion, a bit of lubrication, and just to have it so it won't bind, basically. All right. When we talk about just a traditional looking rack and pinion, we have that inner tie rod threaded into the end of the rack, and then it comes out. What does it go into after that?
So the outer tie rod. Oh, let's start with the inner. Inner tie rod gets threaded right into the rack assembly itself.
Okay.
Like Harnick mentioned, the actual rack assembly it gets threaded on from that end, and then we have to make sure that we have a jam nut that holds it in place. But we have to insert that first or thread it on first. Then you have your outer tie rod thread into your inner tie rod. And then you end up putting the outer tie rod into the steering linkage or knuckle assembly. Sorry,
the knuckle. Yeah. So we have basically a threaded rod that's our adjustment for our toe at that point, right?
It's for adjusting specifically just toe for our steering system.
Yeah, and that's different from the parallelogram because you had those adjuster sleeves, right?
Yes.
So this is kind of threaded internally.
So these are threaded into one another while the other ones are threaded to the sleeve assembly itself.
Yeah, and then we lock it with that jam nut.
And then we lock with the jam nut. So
another thing we heat up all the time.
You know what? I think we've all done it at one point.
Yes.
No comment.
When you get those BMWs where just like our drag link systems, you have this slit that's on the actual assembly itself that allows a lot of water to get in.
Genius design.
So BMWs kind of do that with their outer tie rods into the inner, and you can
try your best.
Try your best, as much penetrating fluid as possible, but it doesn't budge.
That's the end takeoff design. And Harnick, I believe there's another style of rack and pinion.
There is another uncommon design known as the center takeoff. In that design, the inner tie rods bolt to the center of the rack. It's a little bit of an oddball design and not too common today, but a lot of Hondas in the past used it. A lot of certain Chrysler vehicles in the past used it as well. The main difference is rather than being threaded to the end of the rack piston, which with an end takeoff, you usually use like a crow's foot socket in order to thread it out. This is bolted to the center of the rack. It's also usually bolted up or mounted towards the firewall of the vehicle. A good indicator of a center takeoff type rack and pinion is the outer tie rods are bolted towards the top of the knuckle. So if you step away for a second and look at it, you notice that's kind of odd. It's not what you're accustomed to seeing on most vehicles. And like I said, it's not as common as the end takeoff. The end takeoff by far more common. But you can still encounter those center takeoff. Plenty of 90s Hondas still on the road.
Oh, yeah. I think Chrysler at some point on our
LH vehicles.
And Trepids and Concords.
And I found out the hard way because we're so used to doing end takeoffs where, you're sitting on that little stool, you're underneath the vehicle, and you're like, where's the jam nut? And then where's the tie rod? And then you happen to peek over and look up and you're like, oh my God, it's all the way up there.
And there's so little space.
Yes.
So little space.
Yeah.
And what I used to do is instead of, being underneath the vehicle, I would take the whole cowl assembly off. That way I have full access to it. Mm-hmm. And I would lay on my stomach over the engine bay and then just do my my toe adjustments from
getting intimate
above.
with it. Yeah. So that's for independent suspensions where we have to do that. Does it change at all when we have a solid axle?
It does change because there is a different setup. That solid axle laterally across our vehicle takes a lot of space. So parallelogram type linkage isn't really gonna work. There isn't space for it. We use something referred to as a drag link type linkage. And the way I like to explain it is you still have your steering box, you still have your pitman arm, but what you have instead now is a rod or a link that connects to your pitman arm and then to the knuckle on the opposite side. There's nothing supporting it, so one end is dragging down. Okay, so that's why we call it a drag link type linkage. Now, if my pitman arm is only connected to one knuckle, and I turn my steering wheel, only one wheel is going to turn. And that's bad.
Well, yes.
So how do I get two wheel steering? I needed an additional component.
The tow bar.
tow bar. Is that what you call it?
We call it a tow bar. Just because, I mean, when you look at it, how many sides can you adjust on that?
So this is the downside, perhaps, of this. You can only adjust total tow. And we usually call it a relay rod because it relays from one wheel to the other wheel. But your manufacturer's terms vary. Chrysler calls it a tie rod tube.
Yes.
Right. So and that's what it looks like. It's a long tube and your tie rod threads into it, and you only have one tie rod. So you're only adjusting total tow. And that's sort of a disadvantage of this design. You can't compensate for small, like just slightly being out of specification on one wheel. You're going to have to find what's actually throwing you out of spec and replace components.
Yeah.
You also do have another adjustment available with a drag link type linkage other than total tow, and that is steering wheel position.
Yeah.
So on the drag link itself, you can actually change the length of the drag link. Sorry, there's a sleeve clamp as well, and you can change the position of the steering wheel. I do
usually mid-road test.
Or honestly, like after,
You're not wrong.
Totally honestly, like after road test.
Yeah.
I ensure that the toe is good.
Oh, absolutely.
And then if the steering wheel is off center, drive it down the middle of your shop. That's generally where your steering wheel or your road wheels can be straight ahead in the vehicle's level. And if your steering wheel's off center, you have someone, you find the level 1 apprentice and you go, sit here, look at the steering wheel and tell me when it's straight.
Maybe level 3 apprentice.
Yeah, it's pretty advanced.
Yeah, it's like, level 1's like, it's straight. And you get, no,
it's not
what are you
even
looking
close.
at?
So then you adjust your drag link and you get it straight. It's nice because it's actually relatively easy to do alignments on these types of vehicles.
Even though I find it to be just an added, when you do an alignment on your traditional rack and pinion, we hold down the steering wheel, we'll do our toe set and whatever other adjustments are required. And generally the steering will be straight with the total toe. But you're right, when it comes to the drag link system itself, once you do your total toe, your steering wheel goes out the window. And like Ian said, that's when you go on a road test and you take the tools with you, because the alignment machine will adjust for it if you know how to use it properly. But I've seen multiple techs just do the toe and then, I'm not going to bother with the machine anymore. I'm just going to drive it down the road. They take their 15 mil, their pliers with them and adjust it on the go.
Yeah. And I do something similar. I get it close on the machine and then I like to drive it and see where it actually is.
Yeah. And alignments become a huge issue because you always have a customer that will say, oh, when I drive home down this road, my car pulls this way and that way. And then you got to take into account, 1, road crown, 2, all roads are built differently over years.
My favorite is my car only pulls when I drive on this road. Only, like I had a customer and it was on Kipling. So they're like, when I'm driving here, it pulls to the right. How's it on every other road?
Yeah.
That's fine. Okay. So aside from me doing some road work, there's not much I'm going to be able to do to fix that concern.
So is that system also called cross steer? Would that be another name?
Cross steer
for it?
is another term for it as well.
And a lot of Jeeps use that. Do they not?
Anything with a solid axle. Well,
a lot
not
of older
anything.
Jeeps.
Well, that's where the Fords come in. Because the Fords with your twin I-beam type of suspension.
A hybrid style system, right?
Yeah. So the twin I-beam type suspension that Ian so desperately wants to talk about.
That is not true. I'd skip this completely if it was me.
We could skip it.
No.
The twin I-beam is a really oddball design. First of all, it's only used if the vehicle has a twin I-beam suspension. And then you get a twin I-beam linkage as well. And it almost looks like you go Pitman arm, 1 drag link, just like we talked about with cross steer or drag link. And then at the other wheel, rather than a relay rod connecting the 2 wheels together, another drag link that mounts to the first drag link. So it's a little bit of a strange configuration. But Ford is still using it today on some of their vehicles, primarily their heavier trucks. But aside from that, you're not going to find it on a GM. GM still uses parallelogram linkage quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
We have the GMC Sierra in SSB
with the
lab.
independent.
With the-
That's a little bit older. I think it's an 04. Actually, there's two VINs on it. On the door, it says 04, and then on the windshield, it says
really?
06. Yeah. It's got a donor
Definitely
door.
donated.
Yeah. So, but very common for GM to use that type of linkage. The benefit of using that parallelogram type linkage, the real benefit we didn't get into and won't go too deep into, is you have a steering box that's going to give you more mechanical advantage than a rack and pinion.
That can give you that.
Exactly.
And the size of those vehicles can host a larger box, which hosts bigger gears and can give you more of that mechanical advantage.
And the real advantage we have now, because you look at pickup trucks today, 1500, it's got a rack and pinion. But how do we get that assist? It's electric.
Yeah.
Right. So we increase the efficiency by using an electric system that gives us more assist. But that, I think, is for another podcast.
Definitely for another podcast. Yeah. I think that's been pretty good. Did we cover everything pretty much?
And I think we got them all.
Yeah, we
all
talked
151.
about-
And we also have included the auto body class that just came out of the.
Yeah, if you can hear that, that's the rambunctious, shall we say, auto body class that's letting out for the day.
Yeah, shout out to the auto body class. All right, Arturo, to end every episode, we have to ask some questions. And because it's the first time on, we're going to go back a little bit.
Okay.
So if you had any vehicle to drive for one day, now this vehicle could be absurd. There's no budget.
You magically know how to operate it.
You instantly know how to operate it. What would you choose?
I'm just going to keep it simple. And my choice would be
Bicycle.
a Nissan GTR R35.
I thought you were going to say Versa.
I have some level 1 students right now who would be very happy
Well,
with
they
you.
know what's up. It's a good
All
car.
right, what year is that R35?
I mean, you don't want to go too early. The 09s had their biggest problems.
You're only driving it for a day.
2010s
and it's mint.
got a little bit
Yeah.
better. Well, if I had to pick, it'd be newer body, maybe in the 2016, 2017 body.
And if you had that vehicle, where would you want to drive it for the day?
I would take it to Cayuga. If I'm not going to own this car, I'm going to give her all I could
Yeah.
and just
Die.
enjoy the car. If I die in it, I die in it.
You'll magically
I'd
be
be
alive
happy.
again, I guess,
Yeah.
in this situation.
I'll just reincarnate and come back again. so.
Nakashima is currently saying he's never driving my car.
Yeah.
Hey, can I see that car for a second?
It's not mine. All right. And last question. If you could have any meal anywhere in the world, what would you choose and where?
I'm a huge fan of pho or pho.
Okay.
And I've heard of great experiences of it if you got it from Vietnam.
Okay.
They say one of the best bowls come straight from a vendor that's on the streets from their cart.
I have heard that before, actually.
So,
Yeah.
and I've seen a documentary on it as well. So if I could, yeah, that would be my meal.
What? So I believe you can choose the different ingredients in it sometimes.
Yeah, you can.
Do you have a preference of what's in your bowl?
Aside from like the noodles being there,
Mhm.
the onions as well. I'm one that every time I get it, I ask for no cilantro.
Oh, really?
And coming from a South American background, my mom will.
Does it taste
be
like soap to you?
No, it does not taste like soap.
Okay.
But I do hear that a lot, which I find it weird. It
Yeah.
just when cilantro is put into any meal, it just overpowers it,
I've heard that a lot.
and it
Interesting.
doesn't
I
taste like
like
soap
it.
to me.
My
It's
wife
just-
hates it. I like it.
It takes all the flavors out. My mind just goes straight to that. So
Interesting.
I always ask for no cilantro.
Okay. Any meat preference or anything like that?
So you have like your tripes, you have brisket, you have flank. So sometimes beef balls.
Beef balls, eh?
So different places will.
Beef balls, eh?
Yep. But my go-to would be rare beef with brisket.
Okay.
So I get the two that I normally will go for.
Awesome. Well, that wraps it up. Arturo, thanks for joining us. And
Awesome.
You'll have to jump on again when we talk about some more components or topics. And
Types of assist and transmissions and all that kind of good
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah,
it'd be
absolutely.
good.
I'm going to be around. So
we'll
Let me know.
We'll hopefully be doing this more consistently in the near future. So that'd be fun.
this is season 3 now.
That we're in season 3, which is
Wow.
wild. There's only been 10 episodes a season, but still, it's been a while now.
Oh, it's great. It's great what you guys are doing. You're getting a little bit of everybody that's here. you get to know them a little bit as well. So, and on top of that, the students are benefiting from, getting to know us as individuals aside from, the college. But it's great what you guys are doing. And I appreciate that you guys gave me the opportunity to be on this podcast.
Don't you work with somebody that is an avid listener to the podcast?
Yeah, Gerardo Patty. He will be coming back for level 3. Okay. So
watch out for him then.
I did tell him about the podcast, and I'm sure he listened to all of them, and he did remember Arnie giving some shout outs, and he's like, I hope one day I get a shout out, but today's your day,
charging for these start charging for these shout outs.
Yeah, we definitely do. This cost me a fortune.
But shout out to G, AK Francois, the guys that I work with.
Nice. Awesome. Well, that's it for today's episode. I hope you guys learned something about steering. And if you have any questions, thoughts, things you want to know,
just shout them out down the hall. No one's going to email you, Ian.
Send me an email. It's in the description of this podcast. This is now also found on YouTube. Not video yet, but maybe. We'll see. But yeah, check it out on YouTube if you want. Talking with SOT. And if you have a cool name that you want to throw in, let's see what you can find. The Dragon. That was really good, man. The Dragon.
You know what, though? That's how it has to end. This has been the Talking with SOT podcast with Harnett Gill and Ian Campbell. Thanks for listening.